my name's Cynthia Liu, and I am a university recruiter at Facebook during the day, and I'm a powerlifter, influencer, and small business owner and entrepreneur by night. A little bit about myself and my background. I am Taiwanese American. My parents immigrated here to the US in their 20s. I was born and raised in San Jose, and since my parents immigrated over when they were a little bit older, I think I definitely did grow up in a strict household, and that caused a little bit of rebellion growing up. So when I was 17, I actually enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserves because I wanted a little bit more structure in my life, and it definitely gave me that. And shortly after that, I also was going to UC Davis studying communications. So while I was at Davis, unfortunately with my strict upbringing as well as some abusive and unhealthy relationships that I was in, I started going to the gym to change myself. I really wanted to lose the freshman 15 and all these different things, had a really bad relationship with my body, and unfortunately developed an eating disorder. Those were definitely some really dark years of my life. However, it led me to something really, really great. I found out about powerlifting when I was kind of obsessively working out and putting my body through way too much. And thankfully, powerlifting changed my life because I went from going to the gym to try to get smaller, to get toned, and to do these things to my body to instead focusing on being strong. So I started competing in powerlifting, and I just never looked back because it helped me recover from bulimia. Over the years, I started, building up a social media presence. It wasn't exactly intentional at first. It started with like fitness recipes and just sharing my fitness journey. But there was a time back in 2014 when not that many women or girls were competing in powerlifting. So I made a little bit of a name for myself as an Asian American powerlifter, Asian American female powerlifter. And it was really empowering, as I went on that journey. Over the years, I started building my social media presence specifically on Instagram, and I became an influencer in a sense. So powerlifting changed my life. It was really empowering to stop caring about what I look like in the mirror and instead start focusing on being as strong as I could possibly be. And it was a really great outlet for various mental disorders that I deal with, and that's another part of my social media as well. I spent a lot of time trying to raise awareness to mental health because it's something I've struggled with since I was a teenager, and that's another thing that I love the AHN community for. I think a lot of people have been starting to open up about mental health, and I think that's absolutely amazing because I think it's something that's not spoken about nearly enough in the Asian American community because when we talk about, where our parents immigrated from, it's a different world in terms of what people focus on because it's all about hard work and sometimes not really thinking about what kind of mental toll it can take on yourself. So in terms of powerlifting, I've been powerlifting for over 6 years now, I think, 6, maybe 7 years. I haven't competed in about a year and a half now, but competing has been really great because it's helped me keep that competitive drive after I stopped playing sports in high school. And something that has happened because, I'm not really training to change what my body looks like anymore. I'm training for strength. My body has changed regardless, right? And this happens to anybody who strength trains. So my shoulders have gotten a little bit broader. My legs have gotten much bigger. My butt's gotten bigger. My lats have grown. My traps have grown. And over time, I've found that it's really difficult to shop for clothes. And the really cool thing is being an influencer, I worked with a number of brands that were more specialty focused, also focused on bringing clothing to athletic body types. So I was working with and consulting and being sponsored by a couple brands, and over time, these brands were run by men and they focused a little bit more on men's clothing, like men's dress wear and things like that. And I just didn't feel like there was enough options for women who lift. We would buy something off the rack and it just won't fit us because we tend to have much bigger legs and smaller waistlines. And so, after years and years of not being able to find clothing that fit or having to tailor it or having to wear a belt or different things to make clothing actually fit athletic body types, I decided it would be a really good idea to maybe try to start my own clothing line. Because of my personal experience, right? Like, I'm friends with so many different female lifters that I've made over the years, and we all have the same problem, like not being able to find professional clothes for work that actually fit our body type, or not being able to find a cute outfit for a special event because of your body type. So that's kind of how Cynthia Liu Collection was born, kind of from realizing that there was a gap in the market and really wanting to provide something that made women feel beautiful. Cynthia Liu Collection was launched in December of 2019, so it's been about 7 months that I've been doing this now, and it's been rewarding but also frustrating at times. That's just the reality of starting a business. Like, it's not going to pay off immediately. You're going to put in a ton of hours, and then you might calculate how much money you're making and then realize, like, oh shit, I'm making less than minimum wage. And that's hard, especially if you got a career that you're making good money with, to spend all of your free time working on this thing that may or may not pan out. It doesn't feel great, and I think that's a story for a lot of people in AHN. What I've really enjoyed about Asian Hustle Network is I've seen so many other people who also are working full-time jobs and are having some sort of hustle on the side. So I've drawn some inspiration from seeing some of the posts where people announce that they are now working 100% for themselves, because that is my dream, right? I am hoping that within 5 years, I can quit my day job and just do my own thing completely. That is the absolute dream. That is one of the hardest parts about being an entrepreneur, I think, at this point. I have a day job during the week, and then trying to allocate enough time to be responsive to customers, run social media, make sure that I have future drops scheduled, everything related to running the business. It's really stressful. You kind of feel like you don't really have time for yourself, because all the time that you have relaxing or doing something fun is taking away from time that you could be, doing your business and working on your business and growing your business. So this is kind of where mental health ties in. When I first started Cynthia Liu Collection, I probably put too much of myself into it, right? Like, I drove myself probably to the point where I was having constant breakdowns because I was just so stressed. I was putting so much stress on myself to hit these deadlines that I was making up for myself that, I really drove myself into the ground, and, kind of stopped seeing friends, stopped doing anything outside of, launching this business and work, and trying to make time for my fiance. So it's definitely a difficult journey to go through when you are still working a full-time job, but I think that's the story for most entrepreneurs. Like, unless you've got a rich mommy and daddy that just give you a bunch of money and say, hey, go start a business on your own or whatever, you probably need to work before you start that first business. All right, so I talked a little bit about how the biggest struggle of being an entrepreneur with a full-time job is not feeling you have any downtime, because you kind of realize that time is money, and you are wasting that money and time if you're not constantly working on it and if you're doing things like relaxing. But after I kind of poured too much from my cup multiple times and had one too many mental breakdowns while doing this, I realized that I'm doing more harm than good if I'm just working myself into the ground. I realized the importance of taking some time for myself, trying to continue to have some semblance of a social life, and of course spend time with my fiance and my amazing dog, Foxy. So I realized that it was time to slow down. And if that means pushing out some deadlines or pushing out a drop to make sure that I'm okay mentally, it's worth it. So that has been what I've been focusing on for the past 2 to 3 months, of kind of slowing down and realizing that this is still going to be there. I'm still putting in the time, I'm putting in the effort, but pumping the brakes a little bit to make sure that I'm doing okay, especially because we're in the middle of a global pandemic right now, and it's been stressful. Moving from working in the office full-time to working from home completely for my day job, and then of course trying to run this business completely from home, where I can no longer fly out to LA to do my photo shoots and, work with, my business partners. So everything going virtual has definitely been something that I've had to kind of get accustomed to, but I'm eternally grateful for, having a business and a full-time job that was still able to run despite COVID-19, since it is an online business. Talking a little bit about like what shaped me into being the entrepreneur that I am today, it's hard to put a finger on it. I think the first thing to kind of talk about is just the work ethic that my parents and the military instilled in me. On one end, it's extremely stressful because I feel like I'm never doing enough and I'm never good enough. But on the other side, it definitely is extremely motivating to always be striving for more. And I think the fact that I've been working since I was 16, and even when I was in the reserves, I had multiple part-time jobs and internships. I've always had this doing mentality. I don't know really how to explain it. I don't do well with too much idle time, so it only made sense for me to kind of turn this energy that I've had from building my social media to building a online clothing business where women can feel beautiful and people can feel empowered, because that's what I've been doing with my Instagram page this entire time. So being able to have a physical product and work with that has been really awesome. Another thing is kind of the people that I've been surrounded with. So my fiance also works full-time in tech, and then he's also launched a number of businesses. And some of them are a little bit older than others, but while I was working on Cynthia Lou and getting this idea, he was in the process of starting a new CBD business. And it was just really motivating to watch him go through that process of filing for his LLC and, figuring all these different things out and doing his research and stuff like that. Him having this like passion project and baby on the side really helped me to realize that I can, go for my dreams as well. I think another really big thing to talk about, like how I was able to actually take that leap and start my own business, is having a supportive partner that understands and gets it, right? Like a lot of times the time that we're spending together is working on our side projects. And, I've definitely been in situations in the past where prior partners weren't supportive of, the hustle and like things that I wanted to do, and instead would take those things personally. And the great thing is I've got a partner now that understands it, and not only does he understand it, he's got a big part in my company as well. He is an amazing photographer. He's also a videographer who is currently shooting this right now. And having that, him as a resource and as support kind of makes all these ideas that were just silly dreams before into reality. It made me realize that, I can do this. In the past, I've had difficulty in like believing in myself. Like I might have all these different ideas, but never execute it because I just didn't feel like I was good enough or I could, just a whole lot of imposter syndrome. But, over the years and getting older and having the support system and everything, I've realized that if you fail, that's just a lesson for you to move on with and continue to learn from. One thing that I'm really passionate about is mental health. So I talked a little bit about my strict upbringing and parents, but I was troubled starting from a pretty young age. And a couple of years ago, once I started working at Facebook, there's a really open culture there where you can actually talk about tough conversations without it impacting, your job. And in the past, when I was working at other companies as well as when I was in the military, I didn't talk about mental health, or I wasn't open about struggling with anxiety, depression, PTSD, and ADHD because I was scared of how people at work were going to perceive me. I was scared of how anybody in the professional realm was going to look at me and judge me and maybe scrutinize me for, talking about my background in that way. But thankfully, while at Facebook, I realized I could open up, and I came out about a suicide attempt that I had back in 2008. And that was a huge change in my life, not only to my life, but my family's life, and also my struggle with various mental disorders. And it really changed the direction that the content I put out on social media took. I started having these like really real conversations, and I started pivoting away from the types of posts that I knew were gonna do well, and instead journaling and getting my thoughts out about growth and working on yourself and looking within yourself. Because I think a lot of times people just want to point fingers and blame others for the things that are going on in their life. But a lot of times we have a lot more control over, our life than sometimes we realize. And even with mental health as well. I'm not trying to diminish anybody's journey with various mental disorders, but a lot of it is work and seeking help. And I think it was a huge step for me when I started going to therapy and being open to taking medication again and focusing on exercising, eating well, meditation, and like all these little self-care tidbits that I could focus on in order to make sure that I was healthy, and so that my life would be less of a roller coaster. Because don't get me wrong, I used to have great times and then bad times and great times and bad times, and that's how life is always going to be. But when I really started focusing on my mental health, that's when I started to become more stable. And, with the highs and the lows, I was able to remain productive and do well at my job and even launch a business at the same time. And that would not have been possible if I hadn't started to really prioritize my mental health and, put that above all. Like, it kind of started when I just started sticking up for myself too. I think this is going to be a generalization, and I know it's not going to be completely true, but there are a lot of Asian American people, or even just Asian people in general, who maybe are not too vocal about their own opinions. And that's how I was for most of my upbringing. I was really scared to stick up for myself, and to talk about how I genuinely felt about different topics. And it took finding my voice and going through therapy and realizing that I was just pretending to be somebody that I wasn't. I think my message to other aspiring entrepreneurs or people who want to start a business is to just do it, and realize that in the beginning few months, it's going to be a lot of work, and to not get discouraged and to not let the haters get to you. Because if everybody could do it, then they would do it, right? It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, and relentless drive to actually get your business off the ground and actually start making a profit. So that's my main advice. Just do it, and don't let other people bring you down during that process. Because if you have a dream, you should go after it. Don't let the reason that you don't start a business be because you feel like you don't know what you're doing yet. For first-time business owners, you're gonna have to figure out some shit as you go. It's if you wait until you feel like you have everything perfect to pull the trigger, you're never gonna do that. So start, fail a little bit, learn from your failures, continue innovating, continue with fresh ideas, figure out what works and what doesn't, and just keep growing from there. It's not gonna happen overnight. You're gonna make some mistakes, and you're gonna learn a lot about yourself during the process. So embrace the journey. Another inspiration behind starting a clothing line was all the women within lifting that I met, right? I think a lot of girls growing up are taught you can either be a tomboy or a girly girl, right? And a lot of times you don't really see those two worlds colliding. And for me, like, I've always been both a tomboy and a girly girl. I have a lot of, stereotypically masculine hobbies, but I present extremely feminine because I love hair, I love makeup, I love fashion, I love clothes. But, I also like to kick the shit with the guys, and that was kind of my experience in the military. But one thing that I've noticed is a lot of girls that are, sometimes more tomboyish or maybe don't care as much about their appearance and just don't focus on that. What I'm hearing a lot of times is that they just don't know where to start, or they don't feel confident in certain types of outfits. And I think when it comes to a confidence thing, it's just about trying new things. And so the idea behind the Cynthia Lou collection was, coming up with kind of being like a one-stop shop for clothing, right? So having a lot of rompers and dresses, because if you think about it, that's all you need to worry about, right? Like mixing a top with a bottom sometimes can feel kind of daunting if you are just getting started with dressing a certain way or caring about your appearance. But when you start providing somebody with like rompers, it's just like throw on a pair of shoes and you're good. So there's a ton of rompers, dresses, and jumpsuits in the line because I think it's a lot easier to kind of have a finished outfit without needing to think about it nearly as much. And for a lot of these separate pieces like tops and bottoms, I really wanted to make it easy to pair those tops and bottoms together so that you don't have to think nearly as much. I haven't started it quite yet, but I am hoping to launch a style blog soon. And it's gonna mix, items within the line as well as basic items or items outside of my line, because I don't expect people to just wear my clothing line. I want to give people ideas on how they can dress themselves and feel confident outside of the gym, because there's so many women that feel confident in the gym because the gym gave them that empowerment. And they feel so good in workout clothes and yoga pants and these things, but they don't really know how to transfer that same level of confidence into their everyday life, whether that be a work outfit or like your everyday clothing that you just go to the store in. So I really wanted to create a line that women would feel confident in and feel good in and feel beautiful in, because everybody should have that right.